Her own family thought she'd lost her mind, wasting her money on strangers while forgetting their names. Then they discovered what she'd really been doing, and realized love remembers what memory forgets. Margaret Thompson sat in the sunroom of Riverside Nursing Home, staring out the window with vacant eyes that once sparkled with intelligence. At 82, severe Alzheimer's had stolen almost everything from her: her memories, her personality, her ability to recognize the people who loved her most. Her daughter Sarah approached cautiously, carrying flowers and forcing a smile. "Hi, Mom. It's me, Sarah, your daughter." Margaret looked at her with polite confusion. "That's nice, dear. Are you here to visit someone?" The words stung, just like they did every Sunday. Sarah had been visiting for 3 years, and her mother still had no idea who she was. "Mom, I brought you some pictures," Sarah said, pulling out a photo album. "This is your grandson, Tommy. He just graduated high school." Margaret flipped through the pages with mild interest, as if looking at strangers. But when she reached a page with handwritten names and numbers, her eyes suddenly focused. "Oh yes," Margaret said, her voice becoming clear and purposeful. "Maria Rodriguez, nursing program. Jessica Chen, pre-med. David Williams, engineering. I need to make sure they're all taken care of." Sarah frowned. These weren't family names. "Mom, who are these people?" "The children," Margaret replied firmly, the only time her voice carried conviction anymore. "I have to help the children with their education. It's very important." This was Margaret's obsession, talking about mysterious children and insisting on managing some sort of educational assistance. The family had learned to nod and change the subject, assuming it was another symptom of her confused mind. "Of course, Mom," Sarah said gently, "but let's talk about our family. This is your son, David, remember?" Margaret's clarity faded back to confusion. "I'm sorry, dear. I don't remember having children." The irony was heartbreaking. Margaret couldn't remember giving birth to her own children, couldn't recall their names or faces, but she obsessed over these mysterious students with perfect clarity. The family had begun to resent it. How could their mother remember strangers while forgetting them? After the visit, Sarah met her brother David in the parking lot. Both looked exhausted and frustrated. "She did it again," Sarah said. "Talked about those imaginary students while looking at me like I'm a stranger." It's like the Thompson family had been growing increasingly concerned about Margaret's finances. The nursing home was expensive, her medical bills were mounting, and her Social Security and pension weren't covering everything. They'd need to supplement her care soon, but there was a problem. Margaret's bank account was nearly empty. "I don't understand it," David said, reviewing her bank statements with Sarah. "Mom gets $2,400 a month between Social Security and Dad's pension. The nursing home costs $1,600. Where's the other $800 going?" Sarah pointed to a line item that appeared every month. Educational Grant Foundation, $800. "What the hell is the Educational Grant Foundation?" David asked. They'd asked Margaret about it during visits, but she'd either become agitated or confused. The nursing staff said she received official-looking mail from this organization and would clutch the letters protectively, refusing to let anyone read them. "We need to stop this," Sarah decided. "Mom clearly doesn't understand what she's doing. She's giving away money she needs for her own care to some organization that's probably taking advantage of her dementia." The family felt protective anger. Their mother, who couldn't remember their names, was being exploited by strangers. It was one more injustice of this terrible disease. David made the call to Margaret's bank, intending to investigate and stop the monthly payments. "I need to speak to someone about unauthorized transactions on my mother's account. She has Alzheimer's and is clearly being taken advantage of." The bank representative was sympathetic but firm. "The payments have been authorized by your mother for over 30 years. They're automatic transfers she set up herself, long before any cognitive issues." 30 years? That meant Margaret had been sending this money since before her Alzheimer's diagnosis, back when she was sharp and capable. This wasn't confusion or exploitation. This was intentional. The Thompson family gathered at Sarah's house that evening. Sarah, David, and Margaret's youngest son, Michael, who had driven in from another state. The mood was tense and confused. "I called the Educational Grant Foundation," Michael reported. "They wouldn't give me details because of privacy laws, but they confirmed that Margaret Thompson has been their largest donor for 3 decades. "Largest donor?" Sarah repeated. "She's been giving them $800 a month for 30 years. That's almost $300,000. The number was staggering. Their mother, who had lived modestly, had been quietly giving away what amounted to a fortune. Money that could have paid for better care, family vacations, help for her own children's educations. "This is insane," David said. "While we've been struggling to pay for college for our kids, Mom has been—" "Maybe that's why she talks about those students all the time," Michael suggested. "Maybe they're real, and they're the people she's been supporting." "Even if they are real," Sarah said, "we have to stop this. Mom needs that money now. She has Alzheimer's. She can't be making financial decisions anymore." The family agreed. They would contact the Educational Grant Foundation, explain Margaret's condition, and stop the payments immediately. Their mother's care was more important than funding strangers' educations. What they didn't realize was that Margaret's obsession with helping students wasn't a symptom of her disease. It was the one part of her purpose that Alzheimer's couldn't steal. While the disease had taken her memories of family dinners, birthdays, and personal relationships, it had somehow preserved her knowledge of every single student she'd helped. Maria Rodriguez, the nursing student Margaret had mentioned, was real. So was Jessica Chen, the pre-med student, and David Williams, the engineering major. They were just 3 of the 247 students whose college educations Margaret had funded over 3 decades, quietly changing the trajectory of hundreds of lives. The Thompson family was about to discover that their confused mother hadn't lost her mind. She'd found her mission, and that mission was about to teach them what love really looks like when everything else is stripped away. David Thompson walked into the offices of the Educational Grant Foundation the next morning, armed with legal papers proving his power of attorney and a determination to end what he assumed was exploitation of his vulnerable mother. The receptionist, a young woman named Lisa, smiled warmly. "You're here about Mrs. Thompson? We've been wondering how she's doing. We haven't heard from her in months." "My mother has severe Alzheimer's," David explained. "She can't make financial decisions anymore. I'm here to stop the monthly payments she's been making." Lisa's face fell. "Oh no, we were afraid something might be wrong. Mrs. Thompson has been our most dedicated supporter for over 30 years. She's changed so many lives." The foundation director, Dr. Patricia Williams, emerged from her office. "Mr. Thompson, I'm so sorry to hear about your mother's condition. Margaret Thompson is legendary here. Would you like to understand what she's been supporting before you make any decisions?" David hesitated. He'd come to stop the payments, but curiosity was getting the better of him. "I suppose it wouldn't hurt to know where the money has been going." Dr. Williams led him to a conference room lined with photographs, hundreds of smiling faces in graduation caps, many holding diplomas or professional certificates. "These are just some of the students your mother has helped graduate from college," Dr. Williams explained. 247 students over 30 years. Doctors, nurses, teachers, engineers, all made possible by Margaret's generosity. David stared at the wall of faces, his anger beginning to transform into confusion. I don't understand. My mother was never wealthy. How could she afford to fund so many educations? She started the scholarship program after your father died, Dr. Williams explained. Instead of increasing her own standard of living with his pension, she decided to invest it in young people's futures. $800 a month doesn't sound like much, but over time, it adds up to full scholarships for students who otherwise couldn't afford college. David felt a strange mixture of pride and resentment. His mother had been secretly changing lives while her own family struggled with their children's education costs. Would you like to meet some of them? Dr. Williams asked. Many of our scholarship recipients live in the area now, working in careers they could never have imagined without your mother's help. David found himself nodding, though he wasn't sure why. Within an hour, Dr. Williams had assembled 3 of Margaret's scholarship recipients in the conference room. Maria Rodriguez, now a registered nurse at Chicago General Hospital, spoke first. Mrs. Thompson saved my life. I was working 3 jobs trying to pay for nursing school and about to drop out when I received her scholarship. I've been a nurse for 8 years now, and I've helped deliver over 500 babies. All because your mother believed in me. Dr. James Chen, Maria's colleague, was next. I'm an emergency room physician. Your mother funded my pre-med education when I was the first in my family to go to college. Last month alone, I treated 200 patients. Some of them I helped save. That's your mother's legacy working through me. The third recipient, David Williams, the same name David recognized from his mother's confused ramblings, was a structural engineer. I design bridges now. Bridges that will stand for 100 years, carrying thousands of people safely across rivers and valleys. Your mother built bridges too. Bridges between dreams and reality for kids like me who couldn't afford college. David felt overwhelmed. These weren't strangers taking advantage of his mother. They were living monuments to her generosity. There are 244 more stories like ours, Maria explained. Teachers who've educated thousands of children, social workers who've saved families, researchers working on cancer cures. Your mother created an army of people making the world better. But she doesn't even remember you, David said quietly. She has Alzheimer's. She can't remember her own children. Maria exchanged glances with the others. Actually, she said gently, we visit her sometimes, and she does remember us. Not our faces exactly, but our names, our majors, our dreams. It's like every few months, Dr. Chen confirmed. She asks about our progress, remembers details about our studies. It's remarkable. She can't remember having children, but she knows exactly how we're doing in our careers. David called his siblings from the foundation office, his voice shaky. Sarah, Michael, you need to get down here. We've made a terrible mistake. An hour later, the 3 Thompson siblings sat in stunned silence as Dr. Williams explained the full scope of their mother's legacy. Margaret hadn't just been writing checks. She'd been changing the world, one student at a time.
Your mother created a system,
Dr. Williams explained.
Students would write to her about their progress, their challenges, their dreams. She'd write back with encouragement and advice. Even after her Alzheimer's diagnosis, she continued corresponding with them through us.
Sarah wiped away tears.
We thought she was confused when she talked about students. We thought it was the disease making her obsess over imaginary people.
They're very real,
Dr. Williams assured her.
and they all know about Mrs. Thompson's condition. They've been asking if they can visit her, but we weren't sure if the family would approve.
They want to visit,
Michael asked.
They want to thank her.
Maria explained.
Most of us have tried to pay the scholarships forward, but we all want Margaret to know how her investment paid off. She gave us our lives. We'd like to give her that knowledge.
The siblings looked at each other, shame and realization washing over them. They'd been angry that their mother remembered strangers while forgetting family. But these weren't strangers. They were Margaret's chosen family, the children she'd adopted through generosity rather than biology.
We need to apologize to Mom,
Sarah said.
We've been treating her obsession with helping students like it was a symptom of her disease. But it wasn't confusion. It was the clearest thinking she'd ever done.
David nodded.
And we need to let them visit her. If Mom's real children can't give her the recognition she deserves, maybe her chosen children can.
As they prepared to leave the foundation, Dr. Williams handed them a thick folder.
These are thank you letters from scholarship recipients over the years. Your mother saved them all, organized by student. Even with Alzheimer's, she kept meticulous records of everyone she'd helped.
The folder contained hundreds of letters, graduation announcements, job updates, wedding invitations, birth announcements. An entire generation of young people whose lives had been transformed by one elderly woman's quiet generosity.
She wasn't losing her mind.
Michael realized.
She was finding her purpose, and the disease couldn't take that away from her.
The following Sunday, Riverside Nursing Home had unusual visitors. Instead of the typical family members, a group of young professionals gathered in the lobby. Doctors, nurses, teachers, engineers, social workers. All of them nervous, all of them carrying flowers or small gifts. All of them there to see the woman who had changed their lives. Margaret sat in her usual spot in the sunroom, staring out the window with her characteristic vacant expression. The Thompson family watched anxiously as Maria Rodriguez approached first. "Mrs. Thompson?" Maria said gently. "It's Maria Rodriguez. I'm a nurse now, remember?" Margaret's eyes focused instantly, and her face lit up with a smile her family hadn't seen in years. "Maria, my dear girl, how was your work at the hospital? Are you still in pediatrics?" The family gasped. Margaret didn't just recognize Maria. She knew specific details about her career that even the family didn't know. "Actually, I moved to maternity," Maria said, tears in her eyes. "I've been helping deliver babies, just like we talked about." "Wonderful." Margaret clapped her hands. "You always said you wanted to help bring new life into the world. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart." One by one, the other scholarship recipients approached. Each time, Margaret's response was the same: instant recognition, detailed knowledge of their studies and careers, and genuine maternal pride in their achievements. "Dr. Chen!" Margaret exclaimed when James approached. "Are you still working in emergency medicine? I worry about you working such long hours." "I am, Mrs. Thompson, and I love it, thanks to you." "And David Williams," she said to the engineer. "How are those bridge designs coming? Are you still working on the project over the Mississippi?" David Williams laughed through his tears. "You remember everything, don't you?" "Of course I remember my children," Margaret said matter-of-factly. The Thompson siblings watched in amazement as their mother, who couldn't remember their names, held detailed conversations with dozens of scholarship recipients. She knew their majors, their career paths, their personal struggles, their achievements. The clarity and warmth she showed these young people was the mother they remembered from their childhood. "I don't understand," Sarah whispered to Dr. Williams. "How can she remember all of them but not us?" "Alzheimer's is unpredictable," Dr. Williams explained. "Sometimes it preserves memories tied to strong purpose or passion. Your mother's mission to help students wasn't just a hobby, it was her identity. The disease took her personal memories, but couldn't touch her sense of purpose." As the visit continued, Margaret showed her guests photo albums they'd never seen. Not family photos, but pictures of scholarship recipients at their graduations, letters from their first jobs, announcements of their achievements. She'd been documenting their successes with the same care other grandmothers showed their biological grandchildren. "Look," Margaret said proudly, showing a graduation photo. "This is Rebecca Martinez. She's a teacher now, helping children in underprivileged schools. And here's Michael Johnson. He's working on cancer research. Every one of my children is making the world better." Michael Thompson realized his mother had used the word children, not students, not recipients, but children. To Margaret, these scholarship recipients weren't strangers she was helping, they were her family. "Mom," Sarah said gently, approaching for the first time during the visit, "do you know who I am?" Margaret looked at her with polite confusion. "I'm sorry, dear. Should I know you?" The word still stung, but now Sarah understood. Her mother's love hadn't disappeared, it had expanded. Margaret had created a family of choice, bound together not by blood, but by shared purpose and mutual care. She loved us enough to expand her definition of family to include 247 students, David realized. And the disease couldn't take that love away. As the visit ended, the scholarship recipients made an announcement that stunned the Thompson family. "Mrs. Thompson," Maria said, "we've established an endowment fund. All of us have contributed money to ensure your scholarship program continues even after, well, indefinitely. We've raised enough to fund 10 new scholarships every year," Dr. Chen added. "Margaret Thompson scholarships in your honor." Margaret clapped her hands with delight. "More children! We can help more children achieve their dreams." The Thompson siblings looked at each other with a mixture of shame and awe. While they'd been resentful of their mother's generosity, the recipients of that generosity had ensured it would continue forever. "There's something else," Rebecca Martinez, the teacher, said. "We want to create a scholarship specifically for descendants of Margaret Thompson, for your children and grandchildren. We know you sacrificed your family's immediate financial benefit to help us. Now, we want to help your family in return." The irony was beautiful and heartbreaking. Margaret's biological children would finally benefit from her educational mission, but only because her chosen children had ensured it. "Your mother gave us our futures," Maria explained to the family. "Now we want to give your children theirs." As the afternoon ended, Margaret dozed in her chair, surrounded by photos of her 247 children and their achievements. The Thompson family sat with her, finally understanding what they'd been witnessing for years. She wasn't losing her mind, Sarah said quietly. She was following her heart, and her heart was big enough to love 247 students like they were her own children. "The disease took her memory," David added, "but it couldn't take her mission. She proved that love is stronger than Alzheimer's." Margaret stirred and opened her eyes, looking at her biological children with her characteristic polite confusion. "Are you visiting someone, dears?" "Yes," Michael said gently. "We're visiting someone very special, someone who taught us that family isn't just about blood, it's about love in action." Margaret smiled and closed her eyes again, content in the knowledge that her children, all 247 of them, were safe, successful, and making the world a better place. The Thompson family had learned that their mother's final gift wasn't confusion or decline. It was an expansion of love so profound that even Alzheimer's couldn't diminish it. Margaret Thompson had forgotten many things, but she'd never forgotten how to love. And in the end, that's what mattered most. Sometimes the greatest love requires forgetting everything else to remember what truly matters. Margaret Thompson's mind may have been claimed by Alzheimer's, but her heart remained devoted to lifting up the next generation. Her story reminds us that legacy isn't measured by what we remember, but by what we choose to never forget. The power of education, the importance of opportunity, and the endless possibility that exists in every young person's dreams. If this story changes how you see Alzheimer's or makes you think about the elderly people in your life differently, please share it with someone who needs to understand that sometimes what looks like confusion is actually the clearest thinking a person has ever done. What missions are the people around you pursuing that you might not understand? Tell us in the comments below. Remember, we're all still human, still learning, that love sometimes wears the disguise of obsession.